In the next 2 hours, you will witness one of history's most extraordinary stories of faith, courage, and divine intervention. The story of Prophet Musa, a man who was saved as an infant from a tyrant's massacre, raised unknowingly in his enemy's very palace, and chosen by Allah to confront the most powerful ruler of his time. Before we begin, love to know where are you tuning in from tonight. Share it in the comments below, and let's see how beautifully far and wide the words of the Qur'an travel. Through the sacred verses of the Quran, you'll discover how divine guidance transforms fear into strength, how truth ultimately conquers falsehood, and how Allah's protection never fails those who trust in Him. This is more than just a historical account. It's a timeless lesson in resilience, faith, and the power of standing against oppression. Let these verses bring you peace as you reflect on the profound wisdom within Prophet Musa's journey. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We begin with Surah Ta-Ha, verses that reveal one of the most profound moments in human history, the divine calling of Prophet Musa, peace be upon him. From Surah Ta-Ha 29:14. And has the story of Musa reached you, when he saw a fire and said to his family, "Stay here, indeed I have perceived a fire. Perhaps I can bring you a torch or find at the fire some guidance." And when he came to it, he was called, "O Musa, indeed I am your Lord, so remove your sandals. Indeed you are in the sacred valley of Ta-Ha, and I have chosen you, so listen to what is revealed. Indeed I am Allah, there is no deity except me, so worship me and establish prayer for my remembrance." Here we witness the moment that would change not only Musa's life but the course of human history. A simple journey with his family becomes a divine appointment. Musa, traveling through the wilderness, notices something extraordinary, a fire that burns but does not consume. This is no ordinary flame, but a sign from Allah, drawing his chosen messenger toward his destiny. At this moment in time, Musa was living in exile. Years earlier he had fled Egypt after an incident that revealed his compassionate heart. He had intervened to save an oppressed man, but the confrontation had resulted in an Egyptian's death. Now, far from the land of his birth, Musa had built a quiet life as a shepherd, married into the family of a righteous man, and was simply traveling with his family when this divine encounter occurred. But Allah's timing is perfect. The same man who once feared for his life, who had fled in terror, was now being called to return to Egypt, not as a fugitive, but as a messenger of the Most High. Remove your sandals. Indeed you are in the sacred valley of Ta-Ha. These words establish something profound. The very ground Musa stood upon had been sanctified by Allah's presence. The removal of sandals is not merely a ritualistic act, but a recognition of standing before the divine. It represents humility, reverence, and the acknowledgement that in the presence of Allah, all worldly attachments must be set aside. The valley of Ta-Ha becomes a place where heaven and earth meet, where the Eternal communicates directly with His creation. This is the same mountain that would later become known as Mount Sinai, where Musa would receive the Torah, and where the children of Israel would witness divine manifestations. Indeed I am Allah, there is no deity except me, so worship me and establish prayer for my remembrance. Before any mission is given, before any task is assigned, the fundamental truth is established, the oneness of Allah. This is not merely an introduction, it is the foundation upon which everything else will be built. Musa is not being called to serve a king or a political cause. He is being summoned to serve the one who created all existence, who has no partners, no equals, no rivals. This declaration of Tawheed, the absolute unity and uniqueness of Allah, becomes the central message that Musa will carry to Pharaoh and the children of Israel. And I have chosen you, so listen to what is revealed. The word chosen carries immense significance. Musa did not seek this responsibility. It was bestowed upon him by divine wisdom. Allah selects his messengers not based on worldly qualifications but according to his infinite knowledge of their character and potential. This choosing is both an honor and a tremendous responsibility. Musa, who will soon express his fears and concerns, is being prepared for a mission that will require absolute trust in Allah's guidance and support. The call to remember Allah, establish prayer for my remembrance. Even as Musa is being prepared for his prophetic mission, the emphasis is placed on maintaining a constant connection with Allah through prayer and remembrance. This teaches us that no matter how great our worldly responsibilities become, our primary relationship must always be with our Creator. Prayer is not just a ritual to be performed, it is a means of remembering Allah, of maintaining consciousness of His presence in our lives. For Musa, who would face tremendous challenges ahead, this connection would be his source of strength and guidance. As we reflect on this opening scene of Musa's prophetic calling, we find lessons that resonate across time. Like Musa, we may find ourselves in situations we never expected, facing challenges that seem beyond our capacity. But just as Allah called to Musa from that burning bush, He continues to guide those who seek His path. The fire that drew Musa's attention represents divine signs that Allah places in our lives, moments of spiritual clarity, opportunities for growth, calls to serve others. The question is whether we, like Musa, will have the courage to approach these signs and listen to what Allah may be revealing to us. The command to remove his sandals reminds us that approaching the sacred requires humility and preparation. In our daily lives, when we turn to Allah in prayer, when we seek guidance through His words, we must come with hearts that are humble and ready to receive divine wisdom. This divine encounter at Mount Tur marks the beginning of one of the most remarkable stories in human history. The story of faith triumphing over tyranny, of truth conquering falsehood, and of divine guidance. From Surah Ta-Ha, 2011-12. And when he came to it, he was called, O Musa, indeed I am your Lord, so remove your sandals. Indeed you are in the sacred valley of Ta-Ha. These simple words contain profound layers of meaning that have guided believers for centuries. The command to remove sandals is not merely ceremonial, it represents a fundamental shift in consciousness, a recognition of standing before the divine presence that transcends all earthly concerns. The Valley of Ta-Ha holds special significance in Islamic tradition. This is the place where Allah chose to reveal Himself to Musa, transforming an ordinary location into sacred ground. The Arabic word Ta-Ha suggests purification and sanctification. This valley becomes purified by the divine presence, set apart from the ordinary world. When we consider the geography of this moment, we see Musa traveling through what appeared to be empty wilderness. Yet Allah shows us that no place is truly empty of His presence. The most remote valley, far from cities and civilizations, becomes the site of one of history's most significant divine communications. This teaches us that Allah's guidance is not confined to temples or designated holy places. The sacred can manifest anywhere, at any time, for those whose hearts are prepared to receive it. The wilderness that might seem barren to our eyes can be rich with divine potential. Remove your sandals. This command goes far deeper than simple etiquette. In removing his sandals, Musa is symbolically removing the dust and concerns of his journey, the material attachments that might create a barrier between him and divine guidance. Sandals protect our feet from the rough ground, but in this moment, Allah calls Musa to direct contact with the sacred earth. This represents vulnerability, humility, and complete trust in Allah's protection. No longer does Musa need to protect himself through his own efforts. He is under divine care. In many spiritual traditions, removing shoes before entering sacred space represents leaving behind the mundane world with its worries, ambitions, and distractions. For Musa, this act of removal becomes an act of submission, acknowledging that he stands before the Lord of all creation. O Musa, indeed I am your Lord. These words establish the most intimate relationship possible, the Creator speaking directly to his creation. This is not a message delivered through intermediaries, not a vision requiring interpretation, but direct divine communication. The use of Musa's name is significant. Allah knows him personally, calls him by name, recognizes his individual identity even as he reveals his universal lordship. This personal address shows that while Allah is the Lord of all creation, He relates to each of His servants individually, knowing their specific circumstances and needs. For Musa, who had been living as an exile, possibly questioning his place in the world, this personal address from Allah must have been both overwhelming and deeply reassuring. He is not forgotten, not abandoned. He is known and called by the Most High. Indeed, I am your Lord. Before any mission is given, before any task is assigned, the fundamental relationship must be established. Allah is not introducing himself as a king among kings, or a power among powers. He is declaring his absolute lordship over all existence. This recognition of Allah's lordship becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Musa's courage in facing Pharaoh, his patience with the children of Israel, his perseverance through trials, all of this will flow from his deep understanding that he serves the Lord of all creation. The Arabic word Rab, translated as Lord, carries multiple meanings. Creator, sustainer, master, and guide. Allah is not merely the one who created Musa, but the one who has sustained him throughout his life, who guides his affairs, and who has ultimate authority over his destiny. What transforms the valley of Tuwa from ordinary wilderness into sacred ground? It is not any inherent quality of the place itself, but rather the manifestation of Allah's presence. This teaches us that sacredness is not confined to specific locations. Wherever Allah's guidance is truly received and acknowledged, that space becomes holy. This has profound implications for our daily lives. Our homes can become sacred when we remember Allah within them. Our workplaces can be blessed when we maintain consciousness of our divine purpose. Even difficult circumstances can be transformed when we recognize them as opportunities for spiritual growth. The burning bush that drew Musa's attention continues to burn without being consumed, a sign that divine truth illuminates without destroying, guides without overwhelming. Allah's guidance enhances our humanity rather than diminishing it. The command to remove sandals serves as preparation for what is to come. Musa is being prepared for a mission that will require complete reliance on Allah's guidance rather than worldly resources. The man who once fled Egypt in fear must now prepare to return in faith. This moment of preparation teaches us the importance of spiritual readiness before undertaking significant endeavors. Just as Musa needed to recognize the sacred ground on which he stood, we too must prepare our hearts and minds before approaching important decisions or challenges. The stillness of this moment, Musa alone in the valley, away from the noise and distractions of daily life, creates the perfect conditions for divine guidance. Sometimes Allah's clearest messages come not in the midst of activity, but in moments of quiet reflection. The sacred valley of Tuwa represents more than a historical location. It symbolizes the state of consciousness that allows for divine guidance. When we remove the metaphorical sandals of ego, worldly concerns and preoccupations, we create space for spiritual insight. Each of us has the potential to experience our own valley of Tuwa, those moments when Allah's guidance becomes clear, when our purpose is revealed, when we understand our role in the greater plan of creation. The question is whether we will have the wisdom to recognize these moments and the courage to respond as Musa did. The sacred ground beneath Musa's feet reminds us that every step we take can be taken with consciousness of the divine. When we walk through life with awareness of Allah's presence, ordinary ground becomes sacred, routine activities become acts of worship, and daily challenges become opportunities for spiritual growth. From Surah Ta-Ha 20:17-23. And what is that in your right hand, O Musa? He said, It is my staff, I lean upon it, and I bring down leaves for my sheep, and I have therein other uses. Allah said, Throw it down, O Musa. So he threw it down, and thereupon it was a snake, moving swiftly. Allah said, Seize it and fear not, we will return it to its former condition, and put your hand into your armpit. It will come out white without disease. Another sign, in this profound exchange, Allah provides Musa with two miraculous signs that will serve as divine credentials in his upcoming confrontation with Pharaoh. These are not mere magical tricks, but profound symbols of Allah's power over creation, and his ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Musa's staff was his constant companion during his years as a shepherd. It was practical, reliable, and intimately familiar. He leaned upon it for support, used it to guide his flock, and found in it multiple everyday uses. This simple piece of wood represented his livelihood, his means of survival in the wilderness. When Allah asks, And what is that in your right hand, O Musa? The question serves multiple purposes. It draws attention to something Musa considers ordinary and transforms his understanding of it. The staff he thought he knew completely becomes the instrument of divine power. The transformation of the staff into a serpent represents Allah's absolute control over the natural order. What seems fixed and unchanging in our experience is malleable in the hands of the Creator. The same wood that provided gentle support becomes a fearsome snake, demonstrating that Allah can infuse any object with whatever qualities He wills. For Musa, this transformation must have been startling. The tool he trusted, the object he relied upon daily, suddenly becomes something that causes him to flee in fear. This teaches us that our relationship with Allah's power begins with recognizing that He can transform everything we think we understand. The choice of a serpent is particularly significant, given the context of Musa's mission. In ancient Egyptian culture, the serpent was a symbol of royal power. Pharaoh's crown bore the image of a cobra, representing his authority and supposed divine protection. By transforming Musa's humble shepherd staff into a serpent, Allah demonstrates that true power belongs to Him alone. This miracle serves as a preview of what will occur in Pharaoh's court, where Musa's serpent will devour the serpents created by Pharaoh's magicians. The humble staff of a shepherd will overcome the sophisticated illusions of royal sorcerers, showing that divine truth always triumphs over falsehood, regardless of how impressive that falsehood might appear. Seize it and fear not. We will return it to its former condition. Allah's command to Musa to grasp the serpent requires tremendous faith. Natural instinct would be to flee from such a creature, but Allah calls Musa to trust in divine protection and seize what frightens him. This moment teaches us about confronting our fears under divine guidance. What seems dangerous or overwhelming becomes manageable when we trust in Allah's protection and follow His commands. The serpent that could have harmed Musa becomes harmless in his grasp because it operates under Allah's control. The return of the serpent to its original form as a staff demonstrates Allah's complete mastery over these transformations. This is not wild, uncontrolled power, but measured, purposeful demonstration of divine authority that can be manifested or withdrawn according to Allah's wisdom. The second sign involves Musa placing his hand against his side and withdrawing it radiant with divine light. Put your hand into your armpit, it will come out white without disease. Another sign. This miracle transforms part of Musa's own body into a source of brilliant illumination. Unlike the external transformation of the staff, this sign emanates from within Musa himself, suggesting that divine light can manifest through the believer who submits completely to Allah's will. The specification without disease clarifies that this whiteness is not a medical condition, but a supernatural radiance. This radiant hand represents the inner purity and divine connection that Musa has achieved through his submission to Allah's. It symbolizes how the believer becomes a source of guidance and light for others when aligned with divine will. The same hand that once trembled with fear now shines with divine confidence. These two signs complement each other perfectly. The staff represents external power, the ability to transform the physical world according to divine will. The radiant hand represents internal spiritual authority, the light of divine guidance that shines through the purified believer. Together they equip Musa for his dual mission, confronting external oppression through divine power, and providing internal guidance through spiritual illumination. He will need both the miraculous authority to challenge Pharaoh's worldly power, and the inner light to guide the children of Israel through their spiritual darkness. These signs prepare Musa for the skepticism and hostility he will face. In a world where power is often measured by wealth, armies, and political influence, Allah provides Musa with demonstrations of a power that transcends all worldly authority. The miracles also serve as sources of confidence for Musa himself. When he faces Pharaoh's intimidating presence, when the children of Israel question his leadership, when the challenges seem overwhelming, he can remember these signs and know that the same Allah who transformed his staff and illuminated his hand will provide whatever support the mission requires. These signs teach us that Allah can transform the ordinary tools of our lives into instruments of His purpose. Our skills, our resources, our daily implements can all become means of serving Allah's will when we submit them to His guidance. The requirement for Musa to actively participate, to throw down the staff, to grasp the serpent, to place his hand against his side, teaches us that divine miracles often require human cooperation. Allah's power works through our willing participation in His plan. The transformation of fear into confidence, of ordinary objects into miraculous signs, reminds us that nothing in our lives is too humble to be used in Allah's service, and no challenge is too great when we rely on His support. From Surah Ta-Ha 20:25-28, Musa said, "My Lord, expand for me my breast and ease for me my task, and untie the knot from my tongue that they may understand my speech." From Surah Ash-Shura 26:12-14, he said, "My Lord, indeed I fear that they will deny me, and my breast will tighten, and my tongue will not be fluent, so send for Harun. And they have upon me a sin, so I fear that they will kill me." In this profound moment we witness the deeply human side of prophetic calling. Despite witnessing miraculous signs, despite receiving direct communication from Allah, Musa expresses fears and concerns that resonate with anyone who has ever felt inadequate for a significant task. His hesitation does not represent a lack of faith, but rather a humble recognition of the magnitude of what lies ahead. "My Lord, expand for me my breast." This beautiful supplication reveals Musa's understanding of what he truly needs. He does not ask for external power, wealth, or armies. Instead, he requests inner capacity, the expansion of his heart and spirit to contain the enormous responsibility he is being given. The Arabic word sadr, translated as breast, encompasses the entire inner being, the heart, the spirit, the emotional and spiritual center of a person. Musa recognizes that to carry Allah's message effectively, he needs his inner self to be enlarged, strengthened, and prepared for the challenges ahead. This teaches us that true preparation for life's great challenges begins from within. External resources and abilities are important, but without inner strength, emotional resilience, and spiritual capacity, we cannot fulfill our highest purposes. Musa's prayer becomes a model for anyone facing overwhelming responsibilities. "And ease for me my task." Musa acknowledges that the mission ahead is inherently difficult. Confronting the most powerful ruler of his time, liberating an oppressed people, maintaining faith in the face of opposition. He asks not that the task be removed, but that it be made manageable through divine assistance. This distinction is crucial. Musa accepts the difficulty of his mission, but seeks Allah's help in navigating it. He understands that divine assistance does not necessarily eliminate challenges, but provides the strength, wisdom, and guidance needed to overcome them. The word amr, translated as task, encompasses the entire prophetic mission, not just the initial confrontation with Pharaoh, but the long journey of guidance, leadership, and spiritual education that will follow. Musa shows remarkable foresight in recognizing the comprehensive nature of what he is undertaking. "And untie the knot from my tongue that they may understand my speech." This request reveals a specific personal concern, Musa's anxiety about his ability to communicate effectively. Some interpretations suggest he had a speech impediment, while others indicate it represents the general difficulty of conveying divine truths in human language. The metaphor of a knot in the tongue beautifully captures how fear, anxiety, or physical limitations can prevent clear communication. Musa understands that his mission depends heavily on his ability to speak clearly, persuasively, and with divine authority. Without effective communication, even the most profound truths cannot reach their intended audience. This concern shows Musa's practical wisdom. He recognizes that miraculous signs alone may not be sufficient. He must also be able to explain their meaning, convey Allah's message, and guide people toward understanding. The prophet's role requires both divine power and human eloquence. In the verses from Surah Ash-Shura, Musa expresses additional concerns. Indeed, I fear that they will deny me, and they have upon me a sin, so I fear that they will kill me. These fears are entirely rational given his circumstances. The sin Musa refers to is the killing of the Egyptian years earlier, an act that, while defending an oppressed person, had made him a fugitive from Egyptian justice. Returning to Egypt means facing possible execution for this past incident. Musa's fear is not cowardice but realistic assessment of genuine danger. The fear of denial is equally understandable. Musa will be claiming divine authority, asking people to abandon their established beliefs, and challenging the most powerful political and religious systems of his time. The likelihood of rejection, mockery, and opposition is enormous. Allah's response to Musa's concerns is both reassuring and empowering. Rather than dismissing his fears as unfounded, Allah addresses each specific concern with concrete solutions and promises of support. The divine response demonstrates perfect understanding of human psychology. Allah does not expect his messengers to be superhuman or to feel no fear. Instead, he provides the specific help needed to transform natural human concerns into manageable challenges. This exchange shows that honest communication with Allah about our fears and limitations is not only acceptable but beneficial. Musa's willingness to express his concerns openly leads to receiving exactly the divine assistance he needs. Musa's hesitation teaches us the wisdom of honestly assessing our capacities before undertaking major responsibilities. His concerns are not obstacles to his mission, but part of his preparation for it. By acknowledging what he lacks, he opens himself to receiving divine provision. This contrasts with false bravado or unrealistic self-confidence. Musa's humility about his limitations actually qualifies him for divine empowerment. Those who recognize their need for Allah's help are most likely to receive it effectively. This episode reveals that prophets, despite their elevated status, remain fully human in their emotions and concerns. Musa's fears do not disqualify him from his mission. They make him more relatable to those he will guide and more dependent on Allah's support. The combination of divine calling with human vulnerability creates the perfect conditions for authentic leadership. Musa will understand the fears of those he leads because he has experienced fear himself. His dependence on Allah will be genuine because he knows his own limitations intimately. When we face challenges that seem beyond our abilities, Musa's example shows us how to respond. Rather than being paralyzed by fear or proceeding with false confidence, we can honestly assess our needs and seek Allah's specific assistance for our particular circumstances. The elements of Musa's prayer's expansion of the heart, ease in difficulty, clarity in communication, remain relevant for anyone undertaking significant responsibilities. Whether in professional roles, family obligations, or community service, these same needs arise and the same divine assistance remains available. Musa's story reminds us that feeling inadequate for great tasks is often a sign of wisdom rather than weakness, and that acknowledging our limitations is the first step toward receiving the help we need to overcome them. From Surah Ta-Ha, 2029-32, and appoint for me a minister from my family, Musa from my family, Harun, my brother. Increase through him my strength and let him share my task that we may exalt you much and remember you much. From Surah Al-Qasas 28-34-35, and my brother Harun is more fluent than me in speech, so send him with me as a helper and to confirm me. Indeed, I fear they will deny me." Allah said, "We will strengthen your arm through your brother and grant you both authority so they cannot reach you. Through our signs, you and those who follow you will be the predominant ones." In responding to Musa's concerns about his mission, Allah grants one of his most heartfelt requests, the companionship and support of his brother Harun. This divine decision reveals profound wisdom about leadership, human nature, and the importance of genuine partnership in serving Allah's cause. Musa's request for his brother Harun demonstrates remarkable insight into the nature of the task ahead. He understands that the burden of prophethood, while ultimately carried with divine support, benefits enormously from human companionship and shared responsibility. The word wazir used for minister or helper carries the meaning of one who bears burdens alongside another. Musa is not asking for a subordinate or assistant, but for a true partner who can share both the weight of responsibility and the honor of service to Allah. This request shows Musa's wisdom in recognizing his own limitations and his love for his family. Rather than viewing his brother as competition or seeking glory alone, he desires to share both the challenges and the blessings of his prophetic calling with someone he trusts completely. "From my family Musa Harun, my brother." The specification of family relationship is significant. In choosing Harun, Musa selects someone who shares not only blood ties but life experiences, values, and deep mutual understanding. Family bonds provide a unique foundation for partnership in divine service. Harun knows Musa's character, strengths and weaknesses intimately. Their shared upbringing, common experiences of exile, and mutual care create a basis of trust that cannot be easily established with others. This choice also demonstrates that Allah often works through natural relationships and existing bonds of love. Rather than creating entirely new connections, divine wisdom frequently strengthens and sanctifies the relationships already present in our lives. "And my brother Harun is more fluent than me in speech." Musa acknowledges his brother's superior eloquence without shame or jealousy. This recognition of Harun's strengths reveals the maturity and wisdom that qualify Musa for leadership. True leaders understand that their success depends not on being superior in every area, but on recognizing and utilizing the gifts of others. Musa's willingness to acknowledge Harun's superior speaking ability shows confidence in his own divine calling that does not require personal superiority in every skill. The partnership between Musa and Harun becomes a model of how different gifts can complement each other in service to Allah. Where Musa might struggle with eloquence, Harun excels. Where Harun might need guidance in spiritual matters, Musa provides direction. Together they form a more complete instrument of divine purpose. "That we may exalt you much and remember you much." Musa's ultimate goal for this partnership is not personal success or political achievement, but increased worship and remembrance of Allah. This spiritual focus transforms their collaboration from mere practical convenience into sacred service. The repetition of much emphasizes the intensity and frequency of worship that Musa envisions. With Harun's help, they can create more opportunities for divine praise, reach more people with Allah's message, and maintain more consistent remembrance of their Creator throughout their mission. This shared spiritual purpose becomes the foundation of their partnership. When two people unite in service to Allah, Their individual efforts multiply rather than simply adding together. The synergy of shared devotion creates possibilities that neither could achieve alone. Allah's response to Musa's request is immediate and generous. We will strengthen your arm through your brother and grant you both authority. The divine acceptance of Harun as partner validates Musa's wisdom in making this request. The metaphor of strengthening Musa's arm suggests that Harun will become an extension of Musa's own capacity, increasing his reach and effectiveness. This is not delegation of authority but amplification of divine empowerment through human partnership. The promise that they cannot reach you provides assurance of divine protection for both brothers. Their partnership will be shielded by Allah's care, allowing them to focus on their mission without excessive worry about personal safety. Through our signs, you and those who follow you will be the predominant ones. The source of their authority will not be political power, military might, or popular appeal, but divine signs that demonstrate the truth of their message. This promise indicates that their success will come through spiritual rather than worldly means. The signs that convinced Musa of his calling, Musa, the staff and the radiant hand, will also convince others of the authenticity of his message when accompanied by Harun's eloquent explanation. The inclusion of those who follow you extends the promise beyond the two brothers to encompass all who genuinely embrace their message. This suggests that the partnership model they establish will inspire similar cooperation among their followers. The relationship between Musa and Harun establishes a pattern for effective collaboration in religious and spiritual endeavors. Their partnership demonstrates that even divinely appointed leaders benefit from trusted companions who can share their burdens and complement their abilities. This model challenges individualistic approaches to leadership and service. While Musa remains the primary recipient of divine revelation, he does not attempt to carry out his mission in isolation. His wisdom in seeking partnership becomes part of his qualification for leadership. The brotherhood between Musa and Harun also shows how family relationships can be sanctified through shared service to Allah. Their natural affection and trust become instruments of divine purpose, demonstrating that personal love and spiritual mission can reinforce rather than compete with each other. The partnership of Musa and Harun offers guidance for building effective religious communities and organizations. Success in spiritual endeavors often depends on recognizing and utilizing the diverse gifts present within the community. Just as Musa acknowledged Harun's superior eloquence, effective communities celebrate rather than suppress the particular strengths of their members. When people feel valued for their unique contributions, they become more willing to support areas where others excel. The emphasis on shared spiritual objectives reminds us that successful partnerships in religious contexts must be grounded in common devotion to Allah rather than merely personal compatibility or practical convenience. For individuals seeking to serve Allah more effectively, the example of Musa and Harun suggests the value of finding trusted partners who share our spiritual commitments. Whether in family relationships, friendships, or professional collaborations, having companions who support our divine mission can greatly increase our effectiveness and sustainability. The key is ensuring that such partnerships like that of Musa and Harun remain focused on increasing worship and remembrance of Allah rather than personal advancement or recognition. When relationships are oriented toward divine pleasure, they become sources of strength for all involved. From Surah Ta-Ha 20:43, Misha 48, Go both of you to Pharaoh. Indeed he has transgressed, and speak to him with gentle speech that perhaps he may be reminded or fear Allah. They said, Our Lord, indeed we are afraid that he will hasten punishment upon us or that he will transgress. Allah said, Fear not. Indeed I am with you both, I hear and I see. So go to him and say, Indeed we are the messengers of your Lord, so send forth with us the children of Israel and do not torment them. We have come to you with a sign from your Lord, and peace will be upon him who follows the guidance. With divine preparation complete, Allah now sends Musa and Harun on their momentous mission. The command is clear, the destination is specified, and the message is defined. This marks the transition from private divine encounter to public prophetic mission, from preparation to action. Indeed he has transgressed. The Arabic word tagha indicates not merely wrongdoing but going beyond all proper limits, exceeding every boundary of justice and humanity. Pharaoh's transgression is not ordinary criminal behavior but a systematic violation of the natural order that Allah has established. Pharaoh's transgressions were multiple and severe. He enslaved an entire people, ordered the massacre of innocent children, claimed divinity for himself, and established a system of oppression that corrupted the moral fabric of society. His transgression was both personal and institutional, affecting not only his own soul but the lives of countless subjects. This transgression created a crisis that demanded divine intervention. When human authority becomes so corrupted that it violates the fundamental rights Allah has given to his creation, prophetic intervention becomes necessary to restore justice and guidance. And speak to him with gentle speech that perhaps he may be reminded or fear Allah. This instruction reveals Allah's infinite mercy and wisdom in dealing with even the most transgressive individuals. Despite Pharaoh's terrible crimes, the initial approach should be gentle rather than harsh. The Arabic phrase Qur'an Recitation suggests speech that is soft, kind and respectful. This does not mean compromising the truth or avoiding difficult topics, but presenting divine guidance in a manner that opens hearts rather than hardening them. This approach demonstrates that effective da'wah, invitation to truth, begins with wisdom and kindness. Even when confronting the most powerful oppressor, the methodology remains rooted in mercy and the hope for human transformation. That perhaps he may be reminded or fear Allah. These words reveal Allah's hope for Pharaoh's repentance, despite knowing his ultimate fate. This teaches us never to give up hope for anyone's guidance, no matter how far they may have strayed from righteousness. The word remember suggests that truth exists within every human soul, even if buried under layers of pride, power and corruption. Gentle speech aims to awaken this dormant recognition of divine truth. Fear Allah indicates healthy reverence for the Creator, recognition of divine authority, and understanding of accountability. This fear is not terror, but the beginning of wisdom that leads to transformation. Our Lord, indeed we are afraid that he will hasten punishment upon us, or that he will transgress. Musa and Harun's fear is entirely understandable. They are about to confront the most powerful ruler of their time, with a message that challenges his authority, demands the liberation of his workforce, and calls him to account for his actions. Their concern about hastened punishment reflects awareness that Pharaoh might react with immediate violence rather than thoughtful consideration. Powerful people often respond to challenges with force rather than reflection. The fear that he will transgress further suggests concern that their message might provoke Pharaoh to even greater oppression. potentially making conditions worse for the children of Israel and themselves. Fear not, indeed I am with you both, I hear and I see. Allah's response addresses their fears directly with the most powerful assurance possible, His personal presence and attention. I am with you both, promises divine companionship throughout their mission. This presence is not abstract or distant, but immediate and practical. Whatever challenges they face, they will not face them alone. I hear and I see assures them that Allah is fully aware of every detail of their situation. Nothing will escape His attention. Not their words, not Pharaoh's responses, not the reactions of observers. This complete divine awareness ensures appropriate intervention at the right moment. So go to him and say, indeed we are the messengers of your Lord. The message begins with establishing their credentials. They come not as political revolutionaries or personal enemies, but as representatives of divine authority. The phrase your Lord is particularly significant. They do not say our Lord or the Lord, but specifically your Lord, emphasizing that Allah is Pharaoh's creator and master as well, regardless of whether Pharaoh acknowledges this reality. So send forth with us the children of Israel and do not torment them. The demand is specific and practical. This is not merely a spiritual message about belief and worship, but a concrete requirement for social justice and human liberation. The prohibition against tormenting the children of Israel addresses the immediate humanitarian crisis. Even if Pharaoh refuses to release them, he must at least stop the systematic oppression and cruelty. This combination of spiritual message and practical demand shows that true religion addresses both inner transformation and outer justice. The worship of Allah necessarily includes concern for human rights and social equity. We have come to you with a sign from your Lord. The miraculous signs that Musa received serve as divine credentials, proof that their message originates from supernatural authority rather than human ambition. These signs will be demonstrated when Pharaoh inevitably demands proof of their claims. The same staff and radiant hand that convinced Musa of his calling will be offered to convince Pharaoh of the message's authenticity, and peace will be upon him who follows the guidance. The message concludes not with threats but with promises. Those who accept divine guidance will find peace, inner tranquility, social harmony, and spiritual fulfillment. This promise applies to Pharaoh as much as anyone else. Despite his transgressions, the door to peace remains open if he chooses to follow divine guidance. This entire episode demonstrates the perfect balance between divine mercy and justice. Allah's approach to even the most transgressive individuals begins with gentle invitation, clear explanation and promises of peace for those who respond positively. Yet the message also contains implicit warnings. The reference to Pharaoh's transgression and the demand for justice show that divine patience has limits, and continued oppression will eventually face consequences. This command marks the beginning of one of history's most significant transformations, the movement from slavery to freedom, from oppression to justice, from ignorance to guidance. What begins with two brothers approaching a powerful king will eventually liberate an entire people and establish principles of justice that continue to guide humanity. The gentle beginning of such a momentous mission reminds us that the greatest changes often start with simple acts of courage, clear communication, and trust in divine support. Musa and Harun's willingness to approach Pharaoh despite their fears becomes the catalyst for transformations they could never have imagined. From Surah Al-Qasas 28 through Mesis, 6. We recite to you from the news of Musa and Pharaoh in truth for a people who believe. Indeed, Pharaoh exalted himself in the land and made its people into factions, oppressing a sector among them, slaughtering their newborn sons and keeping their females alive. Indeed, he was of the corrupters. And we intended to confer favor upon those who were oppressed in the land and make them leaders and make them inheritors and establish them in the land and show Pharaoh and Haman and their soldiers through them that which they were fearing. As we transition from the divine preparation of Musa to the historical context of his mission, we encounter one of humanity's most brutal examples of systematic oppression. The verses from Surah Al-Qasas paint a vivid picture of Pharaoh's tyrannical rule and reveal Allah's ultimate plan to transform the oppressed into leaders. Indeed, Pharaoh exalted himself in the land. The Arabic verb Allah indicates not merely pride but an active elevation of oneself above others, a deliberate assertion of superiority that recognizes no limits or boundaries. Pharaoh's arrogance was not passive self-satisfaction, but aggressive domination that sought to diminish everyone else. This self-exaltation manifested in Pharaoh's claim to divinity. He did not merely demand political obedience but religious worship. By positioning himself as a god, he attempted to usurp Allah's rightful place in human hearts and minds. This represents the ultimate form of transgression, the creature attempting to replace the creator. The phrase "in the land" emphasizes the comprehensive nature of his arrogance. Pharaoh's pride was not confined to his palace or court, but extended throughout his entire domain. Every institution, every relationship, every aspect of society was corrupted by his inflated sense of self-importance, and made its people into factions. Pharaoh's method of control involved deliberately dividing society into competing groups. This classic strategy of oppression prevents unity among the ruled by creating artificial distinctions and encouraging mutual suspicion. By fragmenting society into factions, Pharaoh ensured that no single group would become powerful enough to challenge his authority. Different segments of the population were given different privileges and burdens, creating hierarchies of oppression where some groups looked down on others rather than recognizing their common subjugation. This divisive approach also served to corrupt the moral fabric of society. When people are taught to see others as fundamentally different or inferior, compassion and justice become casualties of political expediency, oppressing a sector among them. The children of Israel were singled out for particularly harsh treatment. This selective oppression served multiple purposes. It provided forced labor for Pharaoh's building projects, demonstrated his power to all observers, and satisfied his paranoid fears about potential rebellion. The word yastadif, translated as oppressing, carries connotations of deliberate weakening and subjugation. This was not accidental hardship or natural disadvantage, but intentional degradation designed to break the spirit and capacity of an entire people. This systematic nature of the oppression made it particularly insidious. It was not random violence or occasional cruelty, but a sustained campaign designed to reduce human beings to mere tools of production while destroying their dignity and hope, slaughtering their newborn sons and keeping their females alive. This represents perhaps the most horrific aspect of Pharaoh's oppression, the systematic murder of innocent children. The policy was both genocidal and economically motivated, attempting to control population growth while maintaining a workforce of women. The murder of newborn sons served Pharaoh's strategic purposes. It prevented the growth of a potentially rebellious male population while creating trauma that would weaken community resistance. The psychological impact on parents, families, and the entire community would be devastating and long-lasting. The sparing of females reflected the cold economic calculation that characterized Pharaoh's rule. Women could provide labor and bear children for the next generation of workers, but were considered less likely to organize armed resistance. And we intended to confer favor upon those who were oppressed in the land and make them leaders. This verse reveals Allah's ultimate plan, not merely to end the oppression, but to completely reverse the power structure by elevating the oppressed to positions of leadership. The Arabic word man, translated as confer favor, suggests abundant blessing and grace that far exceeds what might be expected. Allah's response to oppression is not limited recompense but overwhelming divine favor that transforms victims into victors. The promise to make them leaders indicates that their elevation will not be temporary or symbolic but substantive and enduring. Those who suffered under tyranny will become examples of just leadership for future generations, and make them inheritors and establish them in the land. The concept of inheritance suggests receiving something valuable that was previously possessed by others. The children of Israel would inherit not only freedom but the very land and resources that their oppressors had claimed. This divine promise reveals Allah's justice system. Those who abuse power will lose it, while those who suffer patiently under oppression will ultimately triumph. The inheritance includes both material blessings and spiritual authority. The establishment in the land indicates permanent settlement rather than temporary refuge. Allah's plan included not just escape from oppression but the creation of a stable, just society where the formerly oppressed could flourish, and show Pharaoh and Haman and their soldiers through them that which they were fearing. This remarkable statement reveals that Pharaoh's oppressive policies were motivated by fear of exactly what Allah planned to accomplish. His attempts to prevent the children of Israel from becoming powerful would ultimately cause their rise to power. The irony is profound. Pharaoh's fear of being overthrown by the children of Israel led him to oppress them, but this oppression became the very reason for divine intervention that would fulfill his fears. His evil actions became the catalyst for his own downfall. This demonstrates a fundamental principle of divine justice. Oppressors often create the conditions for their own destruction through their very attempts to maintain power through injustice. The description of Pharaoh's systematic oppression serves as a warning about how tyranny operates in every age. The patterns of division, selective persecution, and the use of violence to maintain control remain consistent throughout history. The divine promise to elevate the oppressed provides hope for every generation facing injustice. Allah's justice may be delayed, but it is certain. Those who suffer under oppression should maintain faith that their situation can be transformed by divine intervention. The ultimate reversal of power structures reminds us that human assessments of strength and weakness may be completely opposite to divine reality. Those who appear powerless may be chosen for divine favor, while those who seem invincible may be marked for divine judgment. The moral imperative. This historical account creates a moral imperative for believers in every age to oppose oppression and support the oppressed. We are called to recognize the patterns of tyranny and stand with those who suffer under systematic injustice. The story also teaches patience and strategic thinking. Allah's plan for the children of Israel unfolded over many years, requiring faith in divine timing rather than immediate gratification. Effective opposition to oppression often requires long-term commitment and trust in ultimate divine justice. The transformation from oppressed to leaders reminds us that suffering, when endured with faith, can become preparation for greater responsibility and service to others who face similar challenges. From Surah Al-Qasas 28:7-13, and we inspired to the mother of Musa, suckle him, but when you fear for him, cast him into the river, and do not fear, and do not grieve. Indeed, we will return him to you and will make him one of the messengers. And the family of Pharaoh picked him up so that he would become to them an enemy and a source of grief. Indeed, Pharaoh and Haman and their soldiers were deliberate sinners. And the wife of Pharaoh said, "He will be a comfort of the eye for me and for you. Do not kill him. Perhaps he will benefit us, or we will adopt him as a son." And they perceived not. And the heart of Musa's mother became empty. She was about to disclose him. Had we not bound fast her heart that she might be of the believers? And she said to his sister, "Follow him." So she watched him from afar while they perceived not. In this extraordinary passage we witness one of the most remarkable demonstrations of divine protection in human history. The very system designed to destroy the children of Israel becomes the means of preserving their future liberator. Through the faith and courage of a mother, Allah orchestrates events that seem impossible by human standards. And we inspired to the mother of Musa. The Arabic word awayna indicates direct divine communication, the same term used for revelation to prophets. This shows the elevated status of Musa's mother in this crucial moment. She receives direct guidance from Allah for her specific circumstances. This inspiration comes to her not because of her social position or religious training, but because of her pure maternal love combined with faith in Allah's protection. Sometimes the most profound divine guidance comes to ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. The choice to inspire the mother rather than work through established religious or political channels demonstrates Allah's preference for working through hearts that are completely devoted and unencumbered by worldly considerations. Suckle him, but when you fear for him, cast him into the river. This instruction must have seemed like madness to any rational consideration. A mother is told to place her helpless infant into the very river that could destroy him, trusting completely in divine protection. The command to nurse him first shows Allah's care for practical needs even in miraculous circumstances. The child must be nourished and strong enough to survive his journey. Divine intervention works with natural processes rather than replacing them entirely. The timing, when you fear for him, indicates that the decision would come at the moment of greatest danger. This tests the mother's faith at its deepest level, requiring her to choose between natural protective instincts and trust in divine wisdom. And do not fear, and do not grieve. Indeed, we will return him to you, and will make him one of the messengers. Allah provides the mother with specific promises that address both her immediate concerns and her ultimate hopes. The prohibition against fear addresses her natural anxiety about placing her child in danger. The prohibition against grief suggests that separation, though painful, should not lead to despair because it is temporary and purposeful. The promise of return addresses her maternal longing, while the promise of prophethood reveals the magnificent destiny awaiting her son. Her sacrifice will serve not only her own family, but all of humanity through her son's future mission. And the family of Pharaoh picked him up so that he would become to them an enemy and a source of grief. This verse reveals the profound irony of Allah's plan. Pharaoh's own household becomes the protector of the very child, who will ultimately challenge his power. The phrase indicates that this adoption was divinely orchestrated rather than coincidental. Allah guided events so that the infant would be found by those who had the power and resources to protect him from Pharaoh's genocidal policies. The mention that he would become an enemy and a source of grief shows Allah's knowledge of the ultimate outcome, even as he uses their kindness in the present moment for his greater purposes. And the wife of Pharaoh said, "He will be a comfort of the eye for me and for you. Do not kill him. Perhaps he will benefit us, or we will adopt him as a son." The intervention of Pharaoh's wife represents another level of divine protection working through human compassion. Her phrase "comfort of the eye" suggests immediate emotional attachment to the child. This natural maternal instinct becomes an instrument of divine preservation, showing how Allah works through the genuine feelings He has placed in human hearts. Her practical arguments, potential benefit and adoption provide Pharaoh with rational reasons to spare the child, even though his policy was to kill all Hebrew male infants. Divine wisdom uses human reasoning to accomplish supernatural purposes, and the heart of Musa's mother became empty. She was about to disclose him had we not bound fast her heart that she might be of the believers. This passage reveals the intense emotional struggle of the mother after placing her child in the river. The empty heart describes the devastating sense of loss that follows such an act of faith. Even when we trust Allah completely, the emotional impact of difficult decisions remains real and painful. Her impulse to disclose the situation shows how natural love can threaten to undermine divine plans. Only Allah's strengthening of her heart prevents her from acting on emotions that, while understandable, could have endangered her son. And she said to his sister, "Follow him." So she watched him from afar while they perceived not. The assignment of the sister to monitor the situation shows the mother's practical wisdom in maintaining connection while respecting divine timing. The sister's ability to observe while they perceived not indicates divine protection extending to the entire family operation. Allah conceals their surveillance while allowing them to maintain awareness of the child's welfare. This arrangement demonstrates how faith and practical action work together in divine plans. Trust in Allah does not eliminate the need for reasonable precautions and careful planning. Throughout this narrative, Allah's protection works primarily through human beings, the mother's faith, the wife's compassion, the sister's surveillance. This shows that divine miracles often manifest through the elevation and coordination of natural human qualities rather than suspension of natural laws. The protection of Musa involves multiple people acting from different motivations: maternal love, political calculation, feminine compassion, sisterly loyalty. Allah weaves these diverse human responses into a comprehensive protection system. Growing up in Pharaoh's household will provide Musa with unique advantages for his future mission. He will understand the power structures, communication methods, and psychological patterns of those he must eventually confront. This upbringing also demonstrates that Allah can use any environment for the preparation of His messengers. Even the household of tyranny becomes a school for the future liberator, showing that no circumstance is beyond divine redemption. The mother of Musa becomes a model of ultimate trust in divine wisdom, even when that wisdom requires actions that seem to contradict natural instincts. Her willingness to surrender her most precious possession demonstrates faith at its highest level. Her story teaches that sometimes serving Allah's greater purposes requires temporary sacrifice of our immediate desires. The pain of separation becomes meaningful when viewed within the context of divine planning. The central role of women in this story, Musa's mother, his sister, and Pharaoh's wife, demonstrates how maternal and feminine love becomes an instrument of divine protection. Their emotional connections transcend political and racial boundaries to preserve life and hope. This emphasis on feminine wisdom and compassion provides a counterpoint to the masculine violence and oppression characterizing Pharaoh's rule. Love and nurturing triumph over hatred and destruction through divine orchestration. The story of Musa's preservation teaches that Allah's protection can manifest even in the most hopeless circumstances. When human solutions seem impossible, divine solutions remain available to those who trust completely in Allah's wisdom and timing. From Surah Al-Qasas 28:14 Ms 21, and when he reached maturity and was fully established, we gave him judgment and knowledge, and thus do we reward the doers of good. And he entered the city at a time of inattention by its people, and found therein 2 men fighting, one from his faction and one from among his enemies. And the one from his faction called for help to him against the one who was from his enemies, so Musa struck him and killed him. He said, "This is from the work of Satan, indeed he is a manifest misleading enemy." He said, "My Lord, indeed I have wronged myself, so forgive me," and he forgave him. Indeed he is the forgiving, the merciful. Growing up in Pharaoh's palace provided Musa with unique advantages, education, status, and insight into the power structures he would later confront. Yet this privileged position created an internal tension between comfort and conscience that would ultimately force him to choose between personal security and moral responsibility. And when he reached maturity and was fully established, we gave him judgment and knowledge. Allah's timing reveals divine wisdom. These gifts came when Musa had reached full development, preparing him for the moral crisis that would define his character. The judgment encompasses wisdom and discernment, while knowledge refers to deep understanding of truth and justice. Entering the city during a quiet period, Musa encountered a fight between a Hebrew and an Egyptian. The Hebrew's appeal for help based on ethnic solidarity placed Musa at a crossroads. His response would reveal his true loyalties despite his royal upbringing. So Musa struck him and killed him. The fatal outcome was unintended, resulting from righteous anger rather than murderous intent. This incident revealed both Musa's natural sense of justice and his lack of emotional control, qualities that needed divine refinement. He said, "This is from the work of Satan, indeed he is a manifest misleading enemy." Musa's immediate recognition of Satan's influence shows spiritual maturity. He neither justified his actions nor blamed circumstances, but acknowledged how evil had corrupted his good intentions. His distinction between righteous motivation and destructive outcome demonstrates wisdom about the difference between justified anger at injustice and harmful wrath that leads to greater problems. "My Lord, indeed I have wronged myself, so forgive me," and he forgave him. Musa's prayer shows perfect understanding of accountability, recognizing that sin primarily harms the sinner's relationship with Allah. His honest acknowledgement of wrongdoing without minimizing or deflecting earned immediate divine forgiveness. This forgiveness demonstrates Allah's readiness to pardon sincere repentance, providing hope rather than despair when we make serious mistakes. Divine mercy motivated Musa's renewed commitment. My Lord, for the favor you bestowed upon me, I will never be an assistant to the criminals. Gratitude for forgiveness led to better behavior rather than spiritual complacency. The consequences transformed Musa's daily experience from security to vigilance. When the same Hebrew appeared in another conflict, Musa recognized a pattern of problematic behavior, saying, "Indeed, you are an evident, persistent deviator." This interaction taught him that opposing injustice requires wisdom about when and how to intervene, and that some people contribute to their own difficulties through poor choices. This episode became crucial preparation for Musa's future mission. He learned the importance of self-control, the complexity of achieving justice, and the need for divine guidance in all actions. His experience with the repeat offender prepared him for the challenges of leading people who would test his patience repeatedly. Maintaining his moral compass ultimately cost Musa his security in Pharaoh's house. This teaches us that remaining true to our values may require sacrificing worldly advantages, a lesson that would define Musa's entire prophetic mission. The transition from protected prince to hunted fugitive represents the price often paid by those who refuse to compromise with oppressive systems, preparing Musa for a lifetime of choosing divine guidance over worldly comfort. From Surah Al-Qasas 28:18 Ms 22, and he became fearful, vigilant in the city, when suddenly the one who sought his help the previous day cried out to him for help. Musa said to him, "Indeed, you are an evident, persistent deviator." But when he wanted to strike the one who was an enemy to both of them, he said, "O Musa, do you intend to kill me as you killed someone yesterday? You only want to be a tyrant in the land and do not want to be of the amenders." And a man came running from the farthest end of the city. He said, "O Musa, indeed the eminent ones are conferring over you, intending to kill you, so leave. Indeed I am to you of the sincere advisers." So he left it, fearing and anticipating apprehension. He said, "My Lord, save me from the wrongdoing people." This passage captures the moment when Musa's protected life ends abruptly. His confrontation with repeated injustice leads to exposure and forces him to flee the only security he had known. The same Hebrew's reappearance in another conflict revealed troubling patterns. Musa's rebuke, "Meest, indeed you are an evident, persistent deviator," shows growing wisdom about human nature and the recognition that some people consistently create problems through poor judgment or provocative attitudes. This encounter taught Musa that authentic assistance sometimes requires confronting people about their contribution to their difficulties, rather than simply rescuing them from consequences. "O Musa, do you intend to kill me as you killed someone yesterday?" This public accusation transformed everything. The Hebrew's fear led him to weaponize his knowledge of yesterday's incident, revealing the secret that could cost Musa his life. The betrayal by someone he had risked everything to help must have been particularly painful. This teaches us that even well-intentioned actions can be twisted against us by those we try to assist. You only want to be a tyrant in the land and do not want to be of the amenders. The Hebrew's characterization of Musa's intervention as tyrannical behavior inverted the moral reality, portraying justice as oppression and help as domination. This accusation was particularly stinging because it suggested Musa's motivation was personal ambition rather than justice, exactly the opposite of his true character and intentions. A man came running from the farthest end of the city with urgent news that the eminent ones are conferring over you, intending to kill you. This warning from an apparently unconnected source showed that news had spread quickly and reached the highest levels of government. The warner's identification as a sincere advisor emphasized his pure motivation in risking himself to save Musa, contrasting with the Hebrew who revealed Musa's secret for personal protection. So he left it fearing and anticipating apprehension. Musa's decision demonstrated practical wisdom rather than cowardice. Recognizing that his position couldn't protect him from murder charges, he chose exile over almost certain death. His emotional state, fearing and anticipating, shows the natural human response to sudden danger. Even those chosen for great missions experience genuine fear when facing life-threatening situations. "My Lord, save me from the wrongdoing people." Rather than cursing his circumstances or plotting revenge, Musa turned to Allah for guidance and protection. This brief prayer maintained moral clarity about the situation. He was fleeing from injustice, not legitimate authority. Musa's departure toward Madian represented more than geographical movement. It symbolized transition from one life phase to another. The privileged prince became a refugee. The sheltered youth became a man tested by hardship. The passive observer became an active participant in his destiny. While appearing to result from human conflict and poor decisions, Musa's flight served Allah's greater purpose of preparing him for his prophetic mission. The years ahead in Madian would provide essential experiences and perspectives for his future role. Musa's response provides important guidance for managing sudden upheavals. He accurately assessed danger and responded appropriately rather than allowing pride to cloud judgment. He maintained spiritual connection during crisis, turning to Allah rather than relying solely on human planning. Musa's departure ended his life as an insider to Pharaoh's system, freeing him from conflicting loyalties. As an exile, his identity would align completely with the oppressed people he would eventually lead to freedom. This forced transition, though painful, prepared him for his ultimate mission as Allah's messenger and liberator of his people. From Surah Al-Qasas 28:22-28. And when he directed himself toward Madian, he said, "Perhaps my Lord will guide me to the sound path." And when he came to the water of Madian, he found there a crowd of people watering their flocks, and he found aside from them 2 women driving back their flocks. He said, "What is your circumstance?" They said, "We do not water until the shepherds dispatch their flocks, and our father is an old man." So he watered their flocks for them. Then he went back to the shade and said, "My Lord, indeed I am for whatever good you would send down to me in need." Then one of the 2 women came to him walking with shyness. She said, "Indeed my father invites you that he may reward you for having watered for us." So when he came to him and related to him the story, he said, "Fear not. You have escaped from the wrongdoing people." One of the 2 women said, "O my father, hire him. Indeed, the best one you can hire is one who is strong and trustworthy." He said to one of them, "Indeed, I wish to wed you to one of these 2 daughters of mine on the condition that you serve me for 8 years, but if you complete 10, it will be as a favor from me. And I do not wish to put you in difficulty. You will find me, if Allah wills, from among the righteous." This passage reveals the profound transformation of Musa from royal refugee to humble shepherd, and from isolated exile to beloved family member. His years in Madian represent a crucial period of spiritual, emotional, and practical preparation for his future prophetic mission. Through marriage, work, and spiritual maturity, Musa develops the qualities essential for leadership of an entire nation. And when he directed himself toward Madian, he said, perhaps my Lord will guide me to the sound path. This simple prayer demonstrates Musa's complete dependence on Allah during his moment of greatest uncertainty. Having lost his privileged position, his security, and his clear sense of direction, he turns to divine guidance. The phrase sound path encompasses both immediate practical needs, finding safety, sustenance, and shelter, and long-term spiritual development. Musa recognizes that his ultimate welfare depends not on his own planning, but on divine direction. This prayer reveals the humility that often emerges from crisis. The former prince who once had servants anticipating his every need now acknowledges his complete dependence on Allah's mercy and guidance. And when he came to the water of Madian, he found there a crowd of people watering their flocks, and he found aside from them 2 women driving back their flocks. This scene immediately reveals Musa's character through his observation and response to injustice, even in his exhausted and vulnerable state. The contrast between the crowd of men at the well and the 2 women waiting aside reflects a society where physical strength determines access to resources. The women's inability to compete with the stronger shepherds for access to water represents a form of structural inequality. Musa's immediate attention to this situation shows that his fundamental nature remains unchanged despite his recent traumatic experiences. His sense of justice and compassion for the vulnerable persists regardless of his personal circumstances. He said, "What is your circumstance?" They said, "We do not water until the shepherds dispatch their flocks, and our father is an old man." Musa's question demonstrates wisdom in gathering information before acting, having learned from his impulsive behavior in Egypt. The women's explanation reveals both their practical difficulty and their underlying vulnerability. Their father's advanced age means they must perform traditionally male tasks without the physical strength typically required. Their patient waiting shows respect for social conventions even when those conventions disadvantage them. This situation allows Musa to help without the complex political and ethnic tensions that complicated his interventions in Egypt. Here the need for assistance is clear, the solution is straightforward, and the recipients are grateful rather than problematic. So he watered their flocks for them. Then he went back to the shade. Musa's action is performed without fanfare or expectation of reward. This quiet service demonstrates the development of his character from someone who acted impulsively to someone who helps thoughtfully and humbly. His retreat to the shade after completing the task shows that he expects nothing in return. This selfless service contrasts sharply with the calculated interactions common in court life and reveals the purity of his motivation. The physical act of watering the flocks would have been strenuous work, especially for someone weakened by travel and stress. Musa's willingness to exert himself for strangers shows the depth of his natural compassion. "My Lord, indeed I am, for whatever good you would send down to me in need." This prayer perfectly balances humility with hope, acknowledging complete dependence while maintaining faith in divine provision. The phrase "whatever good" shows Musa's openness to Allah's wisdom regarding the form his provision might take. He does not specify what he needs, trusting that Allah knows better than he does what will truly benefit him. This prayer becomes a model for anyone facing uncertainty, acknowledging our needs honestly while submitting to divine wisdom about how those needs should be met. Then one of the 2 women came to him walking with shyness. She said, "Indeed, my father invites you that he may reward you for having watered for us." The woman's modest approach and her father's invitation through her demonstrate the family's righteousness and proper conduct. Her shyness reflects both natural modesty and recognition of social boundaries, while her directness in delivering the invitation shows practical wisdom. This balance of propriety and purpose characterizes the family Musa has encountered. The father's desire to reward Musa's kindness reveals a generous spirit that recognizes and appreciates good character. This will prove to be a family that values righteousness over wealth or status. You have escaped from the wrongdoing people. Indeed, the best one you can hire is one who is strong and trustworthy. The father's immediate acceptance of Musa and his daughter's recommendation reveal their ability to discern character quickly and accurately. The daughter's observation that Musa is strong and trustworthy shows remarkable insight from limited interaction. She recognizes both his physical capability, demonstrated through his assistance at the well, and his moral character, revealed through his selfless service. This recognition of Musa's true nature provides him with the acceptance and belonging he needs after his traumatic departure from Egypt. For the first time since fleeing, he encounters people who value him for who he truly is. Indeed, I wish to wed you to one of these two daughters of mine on the condition that you serve me for 8 years. This proposal represents both practical arrangement and spiritual blessing for Musa. The term of service provides Musa with productive work, economic security, and time for personal development. Rather than charity, this arrangement offers dignity through meaningful contribution to the family's welfare. The father's specification, "if Allah wills," and his promise to be from among the righteous, indicate that this family operates according to divine guidance rather than merely human calculation. This period in Median serves multiple purposes in preparing Musa for his prophetic mission. Marriage provides emotional stability and personal maturity. Work as a shepherd develops patience, responsibility, and understanding of simple people's needs. Life in a righteous family environment allows Musa to observe proper relationships, fair dealing, and trust in divine provision. These experiences will be essential when he must create and maintain community among the children of Israel. The contrast between Musa's arrival in Median's fearful, alone, and dependent in his integration into this family demonstrates Allah's ability to transform difficulty into blessing. What seemed like catastrophic loss becomes opportunity for growth and preparation. This transformation teaches us that apparent setbacks in our lives may actually be divine redirection toward better purposes. The pain of leaving familiar circumstances often precedes the joy of discovering our true calling. Musa's experience in Median offers guidance for anyone facing major life transitions or unexpected challenges. His humble service, honest prayer, and openness to divine guidance provide a model for navigating uncertainty with faith and dignity. The recognition he receives from this righteous family reminds us that genuine character will ultimately be valued by those who matter most, even when we feel rejected or unappreciated by others. The years of simple living and honest work that lie ahead for Musa teach us that preparation for great responsibilities often comes through humble service and patient development rather than dramatic events or rapid advancement. From Surah Al-Araf 7:103-126, Then we sent after them Musa with our signs to Pharaoh and his establishment, but they were unjust toward them. So see how was the end of the corrupters. And Musa said, O Pharaoh, I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds. It is an obligation upon me that I should not say about Allah except the truth. I have come to you with a clear sign from your Lord, so send with me the children of Israel. Pharaoh said, If you have come with a sign, then bring it if you should be of the truthful. So Musa threw his staff, and suddenly it was a serpent manifest. and he drew out his hand. Suddenly it was white with radiance for the observers. Said the eminent among the people of Pharaoh, "Indeed, this is a learned magician who wants to expel you from your land through magic. So what do you instruct?" They said, "Postpone the matter of him and his brother, and send among the cities gatherers who will bring you every learned magician." So the magicians came to Pharaoh. They said, "Indeed, for us is a reward if we are the predominant." He said, "Yes, and indeed you will then be of those brought near to me." They said, "O Musa, either you throw or we will be the first to throw." He said, "Rather you throw." And when they threw, they bewitched the eyes of the people and struck them with awe and came with a great magic. And we inspired to Musa, "Throw your staff," and at once it devoured what they were falsifying. So the truth was established, and abolished was what they were doing. And they were overcome right there, and became debased. And the magicians fell down in prostration to Allah. They said, "We have believed in the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of Musa and Harun." This passage captures one of the most dramatic confrontations between truth and falsehood in human history. The contest between Musa and Pharaoh's magicians represents far more than a display of supernatural powers. It is a fundamental clash between divine truth and human deception, between authentic spiritual authority and manufactured illusion. After years of preparation in Madian, Musa returns to Egypt, not as a fugitive prince, but as a messenger of Allah, armed with divine signs and unshakable purpose. His statement, "I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds," establishes his credentials and the universal scope of his mission. The phrase "Lord of the worlds" is particularly significant when addressing Pharaoh, who claimed divinity for himself. Musa immediately establishes that he represents the true creator of all existence, not merely a tribal or national deity, but the absolute sovereign over all creation. His declaration that he must not say about Allah except the truth emphasizes the sacred responsibility of prophetic communication. Unlike court flatterers or political advisors, Musa cannot modify his message to please his audience or avoid uncomfortable truths. Pharaoh's challenge, "If you have come with a sign, then bring it," reveals both skepticism and curiosity. As someone surrounded by court magicians and familiar with various forms of supernatural claims, Pharaoh demands tangible evidence rather than accepting verbal assertions. This demand for proof is not unreasonable. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Pharaoh's willingness to observe Musa's signs shows that despite his arrogance, he maintains some openness to genuine demonstration of divine power. Musa's response involves the same two signs Allah had shown him at Mount Turd, the staff transforming into a serpent and his hand becoming radiant. These are not new miracles created for the occasion, but the same divine credentials Allah had provided for exactly this moment. The staff's transformation, "Suddenly it was a serpent," manifest demonstrates immediate, undeniable change that cannot be attributed to sleight of hand or hidden mechanisms. The word "manifest" emphasizes that this transformation was obvious and clear to all observers. The radiant hand, "Suddenly it was white with radiance," for the observers provides a second type of miracle, one emanating from Musa's own person, rather than an external object. This divine light serves as visible confirmation of his spiritual authority. The response of Pharaoh's advisors reveals their immediate recognition that they face something beyond ordinary magic. Their recommendation to bring you every learned magician acknowledges that this situation requires their most skilled practitioners. Their assessment of Musa as a learned magician who wants to expel you from your land shows how they interpret divine miracles through the lens of political conspiracy. They cannot conceive that supernatural power might serve justice rather than personal ambition. The gathering of magicians from throughout Egypt creates a public spectacle that will have nationwide impact. The magicians' confidence in receiving rewards and elevated status shows their professional pride and expectation of success against this challenger. Their question, "Either you throw or we will be the first to throw," establishes the formal nature of this contest. Musa's response, "Rather you throw," demonstrates both courtesy and confidence. He allows them to demonstrate their abilities first, secure in the knowledge that divine truth will prevail. And when they threw, they bewitched the eyes of the people and struck them with awe and came with a great magic. This description reveals the sophisticated nature of the magician's performance. They created powerful illusions that convinced observers they were witnessing genuine supernatural events. The phrase "bewitched the eyes" indicates that their magic worked through optical illusion and psychological manipulation rather than actual transformation of matter. Their skill was real, but their effects were deceptive appearances rather than genuine miracles. "And we inspired to Musa, throw your staff," and at once it devoured what they were falsifying. The divine command comes at the moment of greatest tension, when the crowd is most impressed by the magician's display. Musa's serpent devoured what they were falsifying, demonstrates the fundamental difference between divine miracle and human illusion. Where the magicians created false appearances, Musa's staff underwent genuine transformation with real effects. So the truth was established and abolished was what they were doing, and they were overcome right there and became debased. The result was immediate and undeniable. The superiority of divine truth over human deception became manifest to all observers. The magicians' immediate recognition of what they had witnessed led to their spontaneous prostration. "We have believed in the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of Musa and Harun." Their professional expertise allowed them to distinguish immediately between their own illusions and genuine divine power. The conversion of Pharaoh's own magicians represents one of the most powerful testimonies to the authenticity of Musa's mission. These were not naive observers, but skilled practitioners who understood the difference between human technique and divine intervention. Their willingness to abandon their positions, privileges, and safety to acknowledge the truth demonstrates the compelling nature of what they witnessed. Professional magicians became the most credible witnesses to the reality of divine miracles. This contest establishes a fundamental principle that remains relevant throughout history. Truth ultimately prevails over falsehood, regardless of how sophisticated or impressive the deception might appear. Divine authority cannot be successfully challenged by human artifice. The public nature of this victory ensures that knowledge of Allah's power spreads throughout Egyptian society. What began as Pharaoh's attempt to discredit Musa becomes instead a powerful demonstration of divine truth. This account teaches us to distinguish between genuine spiritual authority and impressive but empty displays. In every age, there are those who use sophisticated techniques to create false impressions of supernatural power or divine authority. The immediate recognition by experts reminds us that truth has a quality that resonates with sincere seekers, regardless of their background or previous beliefs. Those with genuine knowledge can often recognize authentic divine guidance when they encounter it. The magician's conversion, while spiritually triumphant, would come at enormous personal cost. Their acknowledgement of Allah's truth would likely result in severe punishment from Pharaoh. Their story reminds us that recognizing and following truth often requires significant sacrifice. The placement of this contest at the beginning of Musa's public mission demonstrates divine wisdom in establishing credibility before making demands. The clear demonstration of divine authority provides the foundation for everything that follows. This dramatic confrontation between truth and falsehood serves as a template for understanding spiritual conflicts in every age, reminding us that authentic divine guidance will ultimately triumph over all forms of deception and false authority. From Surah Al-Araf 7:130–136, and we certainly seized the people of Pharaoh with years of famine and a shortage of fruits that perhaps they would be reminded. But when good came to them, they said, "This is ours by right." And when a bad condition struck them, they saw an evil omen in Musa and those with him. So we sent upon them the flood and locusts and lice and frogs and blood as distinct signs. But they were arrogant and were a criminal people. And when the punishment fell upon them, they said, "O Musa, invoke your Lord for us by what he has promised you. If you can remove the punishment from us, we will surely believe you and send with you the children of Israel." But when we removed the punishment from them until a term which they were to reach, then at once they broke their word. Following the magician's conversion, Pharaoh's continued defiance triggered systematic divine intervention designed to demonstrate Allah's complete authority over creation and awaken recognition in hardened hearts. That perhaps they would be reminded reveals the true purpose behind these trials. Allah doesn't send difficulties merely to cause suffering, but to create opportunities for reflection and spiritual awakening that might penetrate hearts closed to gentle guidance. The progression began with agricultural disruption, famine and crop failure that challenged Egypt's foundational source of wealth and security. When natural abundance seemed predictable and manageable, divine intervention forced recognition of dependence on forces beyond human control. When good came to them, they said, "This is ours by right." During prosperity, people attributed success to personal effort rather than divine blessing, maintaining illusions of self-sufficiency that fed their pride and arrogance. When a bad condition struck them, they saw an evil omen in Musa and those with him. During hardship, rather than examining their behavior or recognizing divine warning, they blamed external scapegoats, avoiding confrontation with the possibility that their actions had spiritual consequences. So we sent upon them the flood and locusts and lice and frogs and blood as distinct signs. Each plague demonstrated divine control over different aspects of creation: water systems, insect populations, personal hygiene, domestic spaces, and the life force itself. The flood disrupted agricultural foundations, locusts destroyed remaining crops, lice made cleanliness impossible, frogs invaded private spaces, and blood contaminated water supplies. No aspect of daily life remained untouched by divine intervention. These distinct signs each carried specific messages about divine authority over natural systems that Egyptians considered predictable and controllable. When the punishment fell upon them, they said, "O Musa, invoke your Lord for us." Their desperate pleas revealed superficial conversion motivated by fear rather than genuine recognition of truth. Their reference to your Lord showed they still didn't acknowledge Allah as their own creator, but only as a powerful entity associated with Musa. This limited understanding prevented authentic transformation. the conditional nature of their promises, if you can remove the punishment, indicated negotiation rather than surrender, hoping to return to previous conditions without genuine change. But when we removed the punishment from them until a term which they were to reach, then at once they broke their word. This cycle repeated throughout the plague sequence: crisis, apparent repentance, relief, and immediate return to defiance. The phrase "until a term which they were to reach" suggests Allah knew their repentance was temporary. Divine mercy provided opportunities for genuine change while respecting human freedom to reject guidance. Their immediate promise breaking upon relief demonstrated that apparent conversion was motivated by discomfort rather than recognition of truth. When pressure was removed, their true priorities reasserted themselves. The extended sequence illustrated divine patience in providing multiple opportunities for transformation. Each cycle offered another chance for authentic recognition and change, demonstrating Allah's mercy even toward the most rebellious. However, this pattern also revealed how human pride can resist even obvious divine intervention. Attachment to power and comfort can make people prefer repeated suffering to the humility required for genuine submission. The plague sequence teaches that external signs, however dramatic, cannot force genuine faith. Transformation must come from sincere recognition of truth and voluntary submission to divine guidance rather than external compulsion. The systematic demonstration of divine authority over every aspect of creation, agriculture, weather, insects, animals, health left no rational basis for continued denial, yet hardened hearts persisted in rebellion. These escalating demonstrations prepared both peoples for the ultimate confrontation. The children of Israel witnessed divine authority over their oppressors, while Egyptians received repeated opportunities to recognize truth before facing final judgment. The failure of miraculous intervention to change hardened hearts demonstrated the terrible possibility of choosing destruction over salvation, preparing the way for the final act of divine justice that would end Pharaoh's tyranny forever. From Surah Al-Araf 7 137-141, and we caused the people who had been oppressed to inherit the eastern regions of the land and the western ones which we had blessed. And the good word of your Lord was fulfilled for the children of Israel because of what they had patiently endured. And we destroyed what Pharaoh and his people were making and what they used to erect. And we took the children of Israel across the sea, and Pharaoh and his soldiers pursued them in tyranny and enmity until when drowning overtook him he said, I believe that there is no deity except that in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am of the Muslims. But it was said, now, and you had disobeyed him before and were of the corrupters. So today we will save you in body that you may be to those who succeed you a sign. And indeed many among the people of our signs are heedless. This passage captures the climactic moment of the Exodus story, the liberation of an enslaved people and the dramatic downfall of their oppressor. The crossing of the sea represents not merely escape from physical bondage, but the birth of a nation founded on divine guidance and the principles of justice that Allah revealed through His messenger Musa. And we caused the people who had been oppressed to inherit the eastern regions of the land and the western ones which we had blessed. This fulfillment of divine promise represents the ultimate reversal of power structures that Allah had promised at the beginning of Musa's story. The phrase people who had been oppressed emphasizes that their inheritance is not based on ethnic superiority or military conquest but on divine justice responding to systematic oppression. Their suffering under Pharaoh's tyranny becomes the foundation for their divine inheritance. The description of the land as blessed indicates that they inherit not just territory but divine favor and spiritual opportunity. The land itself carries potential for righteousness and prosperity when governed according to divine principles. And the good word of your Lord was fulfilled for the children of Israel because of what they had patiently endured. This verse reveals that patience in the face of oppression is not passive acceptance but active faith that divine justice will ultimately prevail. Their patient endurance through generations of slavery, infanticide, and degradation becomes the spiritual qualification for liberation and leadership. Divine rewards often come to those who maintain faith during extended periods of trial and apparent divine silence. The fulfillment of Allah's good word demonstrates His absolute faithfulness to His promises, even when fulfillment seems impossible from human perspective. Divine timing may differ from human expectations, but divine promises never fail. And we destroyed what Pharaoh and his people were making and what they used to erect. The systematic destruction of Pharaoh's achievements serves multiple purposes: divine justice, practical liberation of resources, and symbolic demonstration of the temporary nature of all human power. The monuments, buildings, and systems that seemed permanent expressions of Egyptian power prove ephemeral when confronted with divine judgment. This destruction reminds us that human achievements built on oppression and injustice cannot endure. And we took the children of Israel across the sea. This simple statement describes one of history's most miraculous events. The divine facilitation of their crossing represents Allah's direct intervention in human affairs when justice requires supernatural assistance. The crossing of the sea becomes both literal salvation and powerful symbol of divine liberation. Water, which normally presents an insurmountable barrier, becomes a pathway to freedom through divine power. And Pharaoh and his soldiers pursued them in tyranny and enmity. Even after witnessing repeated divine signs and suffering devastating plagues, Pharaoh's pride compels him to pursue the escaping slaves rather than accepting their liberation. The description of his pursuit as motivated by tyranny and enmity rather than justice or legal authority reveals the true nature of his motivation. This is not law enforcement but oppressive rage at losing control over his subjects. Until when drowning overtook him, he said, "I believe that there is no deity except that in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am of the Muslims." Pharaoh's declaration of faith comes only when escape becomes impossible and death is imminent. His reference to that in whom the children of Israel believe shows that even in this moment he cannot directly acknowledge Allah but must define divine authority in relation to his former slaves. This limitation reveals the incomplete nature of his recognition. But it was said, "Now, and you had disobeyed him before and were of the corrupters." The divine response reveals that repentance must come from genuine recognition of truth rather than fear of consequences. Pharaoh's entire life had been dedicated to rejecting divine authority and oppressing Allah's creation. His sudden declaration of faith when facing death lacks the authenticity that would make it acceptable to Allah. So today we will save you in body that you may be to those who succeed you a sign. This preservation of Pharaoh's body serves as permanent testimony to the reality of divine justice and the fate that awaits oppressors. The physical preservation allows future generations to witness the remains of one who claimed divinity and learn from his fate. This becomes a continuing reminder that no human power, however great, can ultimately resist divine justice. And indeed, many among the people of our signs are heedless. This final observation acknowledges that even the most dramatic divine signs may be ignored by those who prefer comfortable illusions to challenging truths. The preservation of Pharaoh's body as a sign only benefits those willing to reflect on its meaning. Physical evidence of divine intervention cannot force recognition in hearts closed to spiritual truth. The successful Exodus marks the transformation of the children of Israel from slaves to a free people with their own identity, purpose, and divine mission. Their liberation becomes the foundation for establishing a society based on divine guidance rather than human oppression. This transition from slavery to freedom requires not only physical departure from Egypt but mental and spiritual transformation from the mindset of oppression to the consciousness of divine purpose. The complete reversal of fortune, slaves becoming inheritors, oppressors becoming destroyed, the mighty becoming powerless, demonstrates divine justice in its purest form. Allah's intervention shows that temporary human power cannot permanently override divine principles. This demonstration of divine justice provides hope for oppressed people in every age that their suffering is not ignored and that ultimate accountability exists for those who abuse power. The Exodus establishes a pattern that recurs throughout history and divine intervention on behalf of the oppressed when human solutions prove inadequate. This pattern encourages faith in divine justice even when immediate relief seems impossible. Musa's role in leading this liberation provides a model for righteous leadership, complete dependence on divine guidance, courage in confronting oppression, patience with difficult followers, and unwavering commitment to divine principles. The Exodus story speaks to anyone trapped in circumstances that seem permanent and unchangeable. It teaches that divine power can transform any situation when the time is right and justice requires intervention. The story also warns about the dangers of power and pride, showing how even the mightiest rulers become powerless when they persistently oppose divine justice and oppress Allah's creation. While the crossing of the sea represents a climactic victory, it also marks the beginning of a new phase of challenges. Liberation from oppression creates opportunities for building just society, but also tests of whether freed people will maintain their commitment to divine guidance. The preserved body of Pharaoh serves as a continuing reminder that divine justice is real, that oppression will be held accountable, and that no human power can ultimately resist the will of Allah when He chooses to intervene directly in human affairs. This great exodus becomes a defining moment not only for the children of Israel but for all humanity's understanding of divine justice, the temporary nature of oppressive power, and the ultimate triumph of truth over falsehood when supported by divine authority. From Surah An-Nazi'at 79:15-26. Has there reached you the story of Musa, when his Lord called to him in the sacred valley of Tuwa, "Go to Pharaoh. Indeed he has transgressed," and say to him, "Would you be willing to purify yourself and let me guide you to your Lord so you would fear him?" And he showed him the greatest sign, but he denied and disobeyed. Then he turned his back, striving, and he gathered his people and called out and said, "I am your Most High Lord." So Allah seized him in exemplary punishment for the last and the first transgression. This passage reveals the climactic moment of Pharaoh's spiritual rebellion, his ultimate blasphemy that sealed his fate and demonstrated the inevitable end of unchecked pride and power. Allah's original call to Pharaoh through Musa was remarkably gentle. "Alter. Would you be willing to purify yourself and let me guide you to your Lord so you would fear him?" Alter. This invitation offered spiritual cleansing, divine guidance, and the blessing of healthy reverence for the Creator. The optional phrasing, "Would you be willing?" emphasized human freedom to choose. Allah did not demand immediate submission, but invited voluntary purification and guidance, showing divine respect for human agency even when addressing the most rebellious. And he showed him the greatest sign, but he denied and disobeyed, despite witnessing undeniable divine miracles. The staff transforming into a serpent, the radiant hand, the defeat of his magicians. Pharaoh chose deliberate rejection. The phrase "greatest sign" indicates these weren't minor supernatural events but overwhelming demonstrations of divine power that left no reasonable doubt about their source. Yet Pharaoh's response was active, denial and disobedience, rather than passive skepticism. Then he turned his back, striving. This describes Pharaoh's escalating rebellion. Not content with personal rejection, he actively worked against divine guidance, mobilizing resources and people to oppose Allah's messenger and message. Striving here indicates persistent, organized effort to counter divine authority through human means. Pharaoh transformed his court and kingdom into instruments of opposition against clearly demonstrated divine truth, and he gathered his people and called out. This public assembly represents Pharaoh's final desperate attempt to maintain authority through the most audacious claim possible, direct assertion of divinity. The gathering suggests this wasn't a private delusion but a public proclamation designed to rally support and suppress any growing recognition of Musa's divine authority among the people. "I am your Most High Lord." These words represent the pinnacle of human arrogance and rebellion against divine order. The Arabic "Ana Rabbukum al-A'la" directly challenges Allah's unique position as Al-Allah, the Most High. This wasn't political rhetoric or metaphorical language, but literal claim to divinity that placed Pharaoh in direct competition with Allah. It represents the inevitable progression of pride unchecked by humility or divine guidance. So Allah seized him in exemplary punishment for the last and the first transgression. The divine response was immediate and comprehensive, addressing both this final blasphemy and Pharaoh's entire history of rebellion and oppression. The word exemplary indicates Pharaoh's punishment serves as a universal model of divine justice that applies to all who follow similar paths. His fate becomes a perpetual warning rather than merely historical incident. The phrase "for the last and the first transgression" shows divine justice encompasses the complete record. Every act of oppression, every claim to false authority, every rejection of divine guidance contributed to final accountability. Pharaoh's journey from political authority to claims of divinity demonstrates how unchecked power corrupts completely. What began as earthly tyranny escalated through various stages until reaching the ultimate transgression of claiming Allah's unique position. This progression warns anyone in positions of authority about the spiritual dangers of power that recognizes no limits or accountability beyond itself. Indeed, and that is a warning for whoever would fear Allah. Pharaoh's destruction serves as perpetual guidance for those who maintain consciousness of divine authority and personal accountability. The warning applies beyond political leaders to anyone tempted to exceed proper boundaries in exercising power over others. Divine justice operates according to consistent principles across all circumstances and cultures. Pharaoh's story illustrates how pride, when left unchecked, inevitably leads to increasingly audacious claims and more destructive behavior. Each successful act of rebellion emboldens greater transgression until reaching the point of no return. This pattern continues throughout history, reminding us that humility and recognition of divine authority serve as essential safeguards against the corrupting influence of unchecked power and success. From Surah Yunus 10:92, "And we took the children of Israel across the sea, and Pharaoh and his soldiers pursued them in tyranny and enmity until, when drowning overtook him, he said, I believe that there is no deity except that in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am of the Muslims. Now, and you had disobeyed him before and were of the corrupters. So today we will save you in body, that you may be to those who succeed you a sign. And indeed many among the people of our signs are heedless." From Surah An-Nazi'at 79:15-96, "Has there reached you the story of Musa, when his Lord called to him in the sacred valley of Tuwa, Go to Pharaoh, indeed he has transgressed, and say to him, Would you be willing to purify yourself and let me guide you to your Lord so you would fear him? And he showed him the greatest sign, but he denied and disobeyed. Then he turned his back, striving, and he gathered his people, and called out and said, I am your most high Lord. So Allah seized him in exemplary punishment for the last and the first transgression. Indeed, in that is a warning for whoever would fear Allah." This final section brings us to the ultimate conclusion of Pharaoh's rebellion and the eternal lessons embedded in his destruction. The story of Prophet Musa reaches its climax not merely with the liberation of the oppressed, but with the demonstration of divine justice that serves as guidance for all humanity until the end of time. "And said, I am your most high Lord." These words represent the pinnacle of human arrogance and rebellion against divine authority. Pharaoh's claim to be your most high Lord is not political rhetoric but theological blasphemy that places him in direct competition with Allah. This declaration reveals the inevitable progression of pride unchecked by humility or divine guidance. What began as political authority gradually transformed into claims of semi-divinity, culminating in the ultimate assertion of absolute divine status. The Arabic phrase, Ana Rabbukum Allah, directly challenges Allah's unique position as Allah, the Most High. This represents not merely political tyranny, but cosmic rebellion against the fundamental order of creation. So Allah seized him in exemplary punishment for the last and the first transgression. The divine response is swift and comprehensive, addressing both Pharaoh's final blasphemy and his entire history of rebellion and oppression. The word exemplary indicates that Pharaoh's punishment serves as a model for divine justice that applies to all who follow similar paths of arrogance and oppression. His fate becomes a universal warning rather than merely historical incident. The phrase "for the last and the first transgression" shows that divine justice encompasses the complete record of rebellion, not just the final act. Every injustice, every claim to false authority, every act of oppression contributes to the final accounting, until when drowning overtook him he said, I believe that there is no deity except that in whom the children of Israel believe, and I am of the Muslims. Even in his final moments, Pharaoh's declaration reveals the limitations of his understanding and the incompleteness of his repentance. His inability to say La ilaha illa Allah directly, instead referring to that in whom the children of Israel believe, shows how pride can distort recognition of truth even at the moment of death. He acknowledges divine power, but cannot humble himself to direct submission. The timing of this declaration, when escape becomes impossible, reveals its motivation as fear of consequences rather than genuine recognition of truth. True repentance requires acknowledgement of wrongdoing, while alternative choices remain available. Now, and you had disobeyed him before and were of the corruptors. The divine response reveals the principle that repentance must be sincere and timely, rather than motivated purely by inescapable consequences. Pharaoh's lifetime of deliberate disobedience and systematic corruption cannot be erased by words spoken only when punishment becomes unavoidable. Divine mercy requires genuine remorse and commitment to change, not merely fear of consequences. The word corruptors encompasses not only personal sin but systematic destruction of justice and morality throughout society. Pharaoh's influence extended far beyond his own actions to corrupt entire civilizations. So today we will save you in body that you may be to those who succeed you a sign. The preservation of Pharaoh's physical remains serves multiple purposes in divine wisdom, historical verification, ongoing warning and testimony to divine justice. This preservation allows future generations to witness tangible evidence of divine intervention in human affairs. Physical remains become continuing testimony that no earthly power, however great, can ultimately resist divine justice. The phrase "to those who succeed you" indicates that this lesson extends beyond Pharaoh's immediate contemporaries to include all future generations who might be tempted by similar arrogance and oppression. Indeed, and that is a warning for whoever would fear Allah. The story of Pharaoh's destruction serves as perpetual guidance for those who maintain consciousness of divine authority and accountability. The warning applies not only to political leaders but to anyone tempted to exceed proper boundaries in their exercise of power or authority over others. The principles of divine justice remain constant across all circumstances and cultures. Those who fear Allah, meaning those who maintain awareness of divine accountability, can learn from Pharaoh's example without having to experience similar destruction personally. And indeed, many among the people of our signs are heedless. This final observation acknowledges that even the most obvious demonstrations of divine justice may be ignored by those who prefer comfortable illusions to challenging truths. The preservation of Pharaoh's body, the historical records of his destruction, and the moral lessons embedded in his story only benefit those willing to reflect seriously on their implications. Human tendency toward heedlessness means that clear divine signs often fail to produce the recognition and behavioral change they were designed to inspire. The story of Prophet Musa and Pharaoh establishes several eternal principles that guide human understanding of justice, authority, and divine accountability. First, no human power, however great, can permanently override divine justice when it chooses to intervene. Second, systematic oppression and corruption inevitably face divine accountability, even if justice appears delayed from human perspective. The apparent success of oppressive systems does not indicate divine approval or permanent stability. Third, genuine repentance requires sincere recognition of wrongdoing while alternatives remain available. Fear-motivated declarations of faith at the moment of inescapable consequences lack the authenticity required for divine acceptance. Pharaoh's preserved body continues to serve its intended purpose as a sign for those who reflect. Modern archaeological discoveries that may relate to this preservation remind each generation that divine warnings remain relevant and that the patterns of arrogance and oppression continue to face the same divine justice. The story provides hope for oppressed people in every age that their suffering is not ignored and that ultimate justice exists even when immediate relief seems impossible. It also warns those in positions of power about the accountability that accompanies authority and the dangers of pride that recognizes no limits. From the burning bush where Allah first called Musa to the drowning of Pharaoh in the sea, the story demonstrates divine faithfulness to his promises and the ultimate triumph of truth over falsehood. The journey from slavery to freedom, from oppression to justice, from fear to faith becomes a template for understanding divine intervention in human affairs. The children of Israel's transformation from despised slaves to inheritors of divine blessing shows that Allah's justice may be delayed but never denied. Their patient endurance becomes the foundation for divine reward, while their oppressor's arrogance becomes the cause of his destruction. This eternal story continues to guide humanity toward justice, humility, and recognition of the divine authority that governs all creation, reminding us that temporary human power cannot permanently resist the will of Allah when justice demands intervention. Thank you for resting with me and listening to these reminders from the Qur'an Recitation. If you'd like to continue this journey of peace and reflection, please subscribe for future episodes. Together we can keep learning and finding calm through the words of Allah.